In our fast-paced modern world, it's not unusual for deep thinkers to feel isolated. Have you ever found yourself thinking deeply, only to realize that the more profound your thoughts become, the more distant you feel from others? This sensation of isolation is not imaginary. Throughout history, society has often feared those who think deeply, not because they are wrong, but because they see and understand what others choose to ignore. From the ancient philosophers like Socrates to the inventors like Nikola Tesla, brilliant minds have been ostracized, silenced, or dismissed, not because of a lack of intelligence, but because their ideas made people uncomfortable. Philosophers such as Arthur Schopenhauer believed that intelligence itself could be a curse, isolating those who see the world more clearly. But why does society resist deep thinkers? The answer lies within human psychology. Think about this. When you encounter someone physically strong, you admire their strength without feeling weak. Similarly, when you meet a wealthy person, you might envy their success but don't feel personally attacked. However, when you come across someone who is intellectually superior, something different happens. This phenomenon is known as the mirror effect in psychology. Deep thinkers not only introduce new ideas, but also reflect the limitations of others back at them, making them uncomfortable. Unlike physical strength or material wealth, intelligence is closely tied to our identity. When we meet someone who questions our core beliefs or introduces complex ideas, it can feel like a direct threat to our sense of self. Instead of admiring their intelligence, people may subconsciously resist or reject it, not because the deep thinker is arrogant, but because their presence forces others to confront their own inadequacies. This is one reason why deep thinkers throughout history have often been pushed to the fringes of society. Their insights challenged not just societal ideas, but also individual egos. People, by nature, will do almost anything to protect their egos from discomfort. Consider your own experiences. Have you ever tried to introduce a complex idea in a casual conversation only to be met with blank stares or awkward silences? Have you noticed how people quickly change the topic when discussions delve beyond surface-level chatter? This isn't coincidental, it's a defense mechanism. When confronted with deep thinkers, people's minds often go into self-preservation mode. Instead of being curious or open-minded, they resist and dismiss deeper thoughts. This is why intellectuals, philosophers, and visionaries often find themselves isolated, not because they prefer solitude, but because society pushes them away. In fact, studies show that in social settings, confidence is often valued more than intelligence. People are drawn to those who project certainty, even if their ideas are shallow or simplistic. This explains why charismatic individuals, leaders, influencers, and motivational speakers tend to have more influence than deep thinkers who approach discussions with nuance and complexity. This paradox of intelligence highlights a societal trend. The more someone seeks truth and challenges common ideas, the more disconnected they become from the majority. The mirror effect not only reflects the limitations of society, but also underscores why society resists change in the first place. If intelligence is so threatening, is there any scientific proof to back up this fear? Modern neuroscience has shown that when people feel intellectually inferior, their brain's amygdala, the region responsible for detecting threats, becomes highly active. In simple terms, deep thinking doesn't just intimidate, it triggers a survival response, similar to the fear we feel when facing physical danger. But why does intelligence activate the same fear circuits in the brain? The answer lies in human evolution. For most of human history, survival depended not on being the smartest, but on being accepted by the group. Social harmony equaled safety, and being rejected by the group could lead to death or vulnerability. This is why the human brain is wired to prioritize social acceptance over intellectual pursuit. When someone with deep intelligence enters a social setting, they disrupt the group's balance, challenging existing ideas, social norms, and dynamics. This triggers the brain's defense mechanism, treating the deep thinker as a potential threat rather than someone with deeper insight. Many deep thinkers find themselves isolated because their intelligence causes them to stand out in a world that values conformity over distinction. A Stanford University study conducted in 2021 revealed something even more intriguing. Deep thinkers' rejection is context-dependent. When people interact with a deep thinker one-on-one, they feel less threatened. However, in group settings, the threat response spikes dramatically. This happens because social status becomes more important in groups. People not only react to intelligence, but also to how others perceive them in comparison. If someone feels intellectually outshined, they instinctively try to undermine or exclude the deep thinker to protect their social standing. Psychologists have identified several cognitive biases that further explain why intelligence is often met with resistance. For example, the Dunning-Kruger effect shows that people with low ability often overestimate their intelligence, while highly intelligent individuals tend to doubt themselves. This creates friction because those who know little often believe they know more than they do, leading them to dismiss or undervalue deep thinkers. Another cognitive bias is the status quo bias, which shows that the human brain prefers familiar ideas over complex truths, making people resistant to new, disruptive thoughts. Social media has only amplified the rejection of intelligence. Algorithms prioritize engagement over depth, meaning that emotionally charged and controversial content spreads faster than well-reasoned, thoughtful discussions. The most viral content is often simplistic and misleading, while deeper thinkers struggle to condense their ideas into easily digestible sound bites. This dynamic makes it even harder for intellectuals to gain widespread acceptance in a society that increasingly favors entertainment over enlightenment. However, this rejection of deep thinkers isn't limited to the digital age. It's been ingrained in human psychology and culture for centuries. As Arthur Schopenhauer suggested, intelligence is not a gift but a burden. He believed that the more intelligent a person is, the harder it becomes to connect with society. Highly intelligent individuals seek truth, even if it leads to discomfort, whereas most people seek comfort and avoid difficult realities. Schopenhauer also proposed that highly intelligent individuals see through the lies and deceptions of society, making it difficult for them to engage in everyday social interactions. They crave deep, meaningful discussions, but society favors shallow conversations and distractions. For these reasons, many deep thinkers feel disconnected from the mainstream and misunderstood by the majority. Despite the challenges that deep thinkers face, Schopenhauer offered some solutions. He advised embracing solitude, not as a punishment, but as a privilege. He believed that deep thinkers should use their alone time for intellectual and creative pursuits, rather than seeking validation from others. He also recommended finding like-minded individuals, whether through books, philosophy, or exclusive intellectual circles, rather than trying to fit into mainstream society. Additionally, he cautioned against sharing deep insights with those who weren't ready to hear them, suggesting that thinkers should observe society, learn its patterns, and choose their words carefully. In today's society, deep thinkers face numerous obstacles. Human psychology and social structures favor conformity, predictability, and comfort over intellectual depth. Cognitive biases, social media algorithms, and societal norms all work against those who challenge conventional thinking. While deep thinkers have historically been isolated, misunderstood, and sometimes persecuted, their insights often shape the future. The challenge for modern intellectuals is to navigate these societal barriers while staying true to their pursuit of knowledge and understanding. In conclusion, society doesn't fear intelligence itself. It fears what intelligence reveals. Deep thinkers aren't rejected because they're wrong, but because they are right too soon. So, if you've ever felt alone in your thoughts, remember, you are not broken. You are simply seeing the world for what it truly is. While society may resist deep thinkers, history shows that their ideas often endure long after the discomfort they initially cause fades away. It's not easy, but for those who dare to think deeply, the rewards of insight, wisdom, and personal growth far outweigh the isolation that often comes with it. Now, let us go even deeper. The rhythm and pacing of your speech also play a crucial role in how others perceive you. Have you ever noticed how confident speakers tend to slow down their speech, allowing each word to land with impact? This is no coincidence. When we are nervous, our instinct is often to speed up, as if we are rushing to get the words out before our thoughts slip away. But this can make us sound anxious or uncertain. On the other hand, a controlled, Measured pace signals confidence, authority, and self-assurance. There is a reason why some of the most influential leaders in history, such as Martin Luther King Jr. or Barack Obama, are known for their deliberate, rhythmic speech patterns. Their words are carefully spaced, their pauses intentional. This technique not only makes their message more powerful, but also allows listeners time to absorb and reflect on what is being said. But what about everyday conversations? How does pacing affect our interactions? Research suggests that mirroring someone's speech pattern, whether in speed, tone, or vocabulary, can actually foster a sense of connection and rapport. This is known as linguistic mirroring, a subconscious phenomenon where people naturally adjust their speech to match those around them. It is a social survival mechanism, a way to create a sense of familiarity and trust. Think about it. Have you ever noticed that when you spend time with someone who has a distinct accent or way of speaking, you start to adopt some of their speech patterns? This is not just coincidence. Our brains are wired for social bonding, and speech is one of the primary tools we use to establish connection. That is why charismatic individuals often have a way of making people feel comfortable. They instinctively adjust their speech to align with their audience, making their words feel more relatable and engaging. Now, let us talk about vocabulary. The words you use daily are a direct reflection of your background, education, and even personality. Consider how language varies between different social groups. The words we use at work are often different from those we use with close friends or family. This linguistic flexibility is known as code switching, and it is something we all do, whether consciously or not. For example, an individual might use formal language in a professional setting, but when speaking with childhood friends, they might revert to more relaxed, slang-filled speech. This ability to shift between linguistic styles is not just about adaptation, it is about identity. Each version of our speech represents a different aspect of who we are. But there is something even more fascinating: the connection between vocabulary and cognitive ability. Research has shown that individuals with a richer vocabulary tend to have more nuanced thinking. The words we use shape how we interpret the world. This idea is rooted in the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which suggests that language does not just express thought, it influences it. In other words, the more words we have to describe an experience, the more complex our understanding of that experience becomes. Consider emotions. In English, we have a relatively limited set of words to describe feelings: happy, sad, angry, frustrated. But in other languages, there are words that capture emotional states with incredible precision. For example, the Japanese word sundoku refers to the act of acquiring books but never reading them, while the Portuguese word saudade describes a deep nostalgic longing for something that may never return. When a language has a word for an experience, it allows people to perceive that experience in a more tangible way. This means that expanding your vocabulary is not just about sounding intelligent, it is about expanding the way you think. The words you use regularly shape your perception of reality. If you frequently use limiting language phrases like "I can't," "it's impossible," or "I'm just not good at this," you may be reinforcing self-imposed limitations without even realizing it. Now, here's something to consider. How often do you truly listen to the way you speak? Have you ever stopped mid-conversation and asked yourself, what does my speech reveal about me? Does it project confidence or insecurity? Does it reflect clarity of thought or confusion? These are not just rhetorical questions, they are the keys to unlocking a deeper understanding of yourself. As we approach the final insight, it is important to recognize the power of silence. In our fast-paced world, silence is often undervalued, yet it is one of the most potent communication tools. Silence allows for reflection, creates space for others to speak, and can amplify the impact of your words when used strategically. Some of the most influential moments in history have been marked not by words, but by silence, a pause before a monumental declaration, a moment of stillness that allows meaning to sink in. In fact, silence can be just as revealing as speech. When someone pauses before responding to a question, it can signal deep thought or hesitation. A prolonged silence can convey discomfort, while a brief, confident pause can demonstrate composure. Learning to embrace silence, rather than filling every moment with words, can transform the way you communicate. It gives you time to choose your words wisely, to consider the impact they will have, and to ensure that when you speak, your words carry weight. Carry weight.